Emma Caldwell thought betrayal had already taken everything from her until the wedding invitation arrived. Her sister, her ex-boyfriend, a marriage built on the ruins of her heartbreak. But when a dangerous stranger catches her on the darkest night of her life, everything changes. Alessandro Moretti doesn't just see her, he claims her. And suddenly, the invisible woman nobody noticed becomes the center of a criminal empire's most dangerous game. If you're ready for a story about revenge, power, and the kind of love that burns empires to ash, stay until the end. Hit that like button and comment your city so I can see how far Emma's story travels. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday. Emma Caldwell stared at the cream-colored envelope sitting in her mailbox, her name written in Lila's perfect calligraphy, the same handwriting that used to leave her birthday cards and shopping lists on the kitchen counter when they were younger. Before everything shattered. She didn't need to open it to know what it was. Her hands trembled as she walked up the 3 flights of stairs to her studio apartment, the envelope pressed against her chest like evidence of a crime. Inside, she dropped her bag, kicked off her worn sneakers, and stood in the small kitchen that barely fit one person, let alone the weight of what she was holding. The envelope sat on the counter, mocking her. Emma peeled it open with careful fingers, as if speed would make the betrayal worse. Inside was exactly what she'd feared, an embossed invitation on expensive cardstock, the kind Lila had always dreamed about. You are cordially invited to celebrate the marriage of Lila Marie Caldwell and Ryan Jeffrey Morrison. The date was set for 8 weeks from now. The venue was the Sterling Room, that glass-walled restaurant downtown that overlooked the harbor, the one Emma had pointed out to Ryan 2 years ago and said, "If we ever get married, I want it there." Apparently he'd remembered, just not for her. Emma's vision blurred. She pressed her palms flat against the counter, forcing air into her lungs, counting her breaths the way she'd learned during the worst shifts at the hospital. 4 counts in. Hold. 4 counts out. It had been 4 months since she'd walked into Ryan's apartment unannounced. She'd had his spare key, after all, had let herself in 100 times before, and found them together. Lila, her younger sister, wrapped in Ryan's shirt. Ryan, frozen in the doorway of his bedroom, his expression not quite guilty enough. Emma had said nothing. She'd set the key on the counter, turned, and walked out. She hadn't cried, hadn't screamed, hadn't demanded explanations or apologies. She had simply erased herself from the situation, quietly, efficiently, the way she'd learned to do her entire life. Her mother had called once. "Emma, we need to talk about this like adults." Emma had declined. There was nothing to say. Lila had always been the bright one, the beautiful one, the one people noticed when she walked into a room. Emma was the responsible one, the steady one, the invisible older sister who worked double shifts and paid her own bills and never caused problems. Even her heartbreak was supposed to be quiet. She folded the invitation closed and shoved it into the drawer beside the stove, where it could live with the unopened mail and the takeout menus she never used. Then she pulled on her jacket and headed out for her evening shift. St. Catherine's Hospital smelled like disinfectant and desperation. Emma clocked in at 6 p.m., tying her hair back as she walked through the employee entrance. The charge nurse barely looked up as she passed. Emma had that effect on people. She could move through a room and leave no impression, like a shadow that never quite solidified. "Caldwell, you're on rounds for the cardiac wing tonight," the charge nurse said. "Jenkins called in sick." Of course she did. "Sure," Emma said. "You okay picking up the extra hours?" Emma nodded. She was always okay picking up the extra hours. What else did she have? The shift blurred together the way they always did. Vitals checks, medication distribution, helping patients to the bathroom, resetting IV lines, listening to family members ask questions she wasn't qualified to answer because she wasn't a nurse, just a nurse's aide, the person who did the grunt work nobody else wanted. By midnight, her feet ached. Her lower back throbbed. She'd skipped her dinner break to cover for another aide who'd disappeared for 40 minutes. At 2 a.m., she finally clocked out. The bus stop outside the hospital was empty. The streetlight above it flickered weakly, buzzing like a dying insect. Emma wrapped her arms around herself as the November wind cut through her jacket. The city felt colder than it had any right to be, pressing in on her from all sides. She checked her phone. The next bus was 12 minutes away. 12 minutes to stand here in the cold and think about the invitation in her drawer. 12 minutes to wonder if Lila had struggled at all with the decision to send it, or if it had been easy. 12 minutes to imagine her mother fussing over wedding plans, asking Lila about flowers and seating charts, forgetting Emma existed except as an obstacle to be managed. The bus pulled up at 2:14 a.m., its brakes hissing. Emma climbed aboard, swiped her card, and sank into a seat near the back. There were only 3 other passengers: a man in a construction vest asleep against the window, a teenager with headphones in, and an older woman clutching a shopping bag. The bus lurched forward. Emma leaned her head against the cold glass and closed her eyes. She didn't notice when the bus slowed unexpectedly. She didn't notice the black SUVs that had blocked the intersection ahead. She didn't notice until the driver's voice crackled over the intercom, tight with fear. "Everyone off, now!" Emma's eyes snapped open. Through the windshield, she could see them. 4 men, dressed in dark clothing, standing in a line across the street. The light from the street lamps gleamed off something metallic in their hands. Guns. "Off the bus!" the driver shouted again, yanking the door open. The other passengers scrambled toward the exit. Emma stood on shaking legs, her heart hammering in her chest. This wasn't happening. This didn't happen in real life, not on a random Tuesday at 2 in the morning, not to someone like her. She stumbled down the aisle, gripping the seats for balance. Outside, the cold air hit her like a slap. The other passengers scattered in different directions, disappearing into the dark. Emma stood frozen on the curb, her breath coming in short gasps. One of the men stepped forward. He was tall. Way a predator looks at prey. "Move," way a predator looks at prey. "Move," he said. His voice was low, accented faintly. Italian, maybe. Emma's legs wouldn't cooperate. She tried to step back, but her heel caught on the edge of the curb. She fell, and he caught her. His hands closed around her arms, steadying her with a grip that was firm but not rough. For a moment, they were inches apart, close enough that she could see the faint scar above his left eyebrow, close enough that she could smell the faint scent of expensive cologne and gunpowder, close enough that when his eyes met hers, something shifted. He didn't let go immediately. "Careful," he said quietly. Then he released her and stepped back, his expression unreadable. "Go home," he told her. Emma didn't wait for him to change his mind. She turned and ran. She didn't stop running until she was 6 blocks away, her lungs burning, her legs threatening to give out. She ducked into the entrance of a closed convenience store and pressed her back against the brick wall, gasping for air. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely pull her phone from her pocket. She should call the police. She should report what she'd seen. But what had she seen, really? Men with guns, a blocked intersection, a stranger who'd caught her when she fell and then told her to leave. She didn't even know what had happened after she ran. Emma forced herself to breathe slowly, counting again. 4 in. Hold. 4 out. When her heart finally stopped racing, she checked the time. 2:47 a.m. She was miles from her apartment. The buses had stopped running. She didn't have money for a cab. She started walking. It took her an hour and a half to get home. By the time she climbed the stairs to her apartment, the sky was starting to lighten. Her feet screamed with every step. Her whole body ached. Inside, she locked the door behind her, checked it twice, then collapsed onto her bed without bothering to change. She told herself she'd forget about it, that it was nothing. A random, terrifying moment that would fade into the background noise of her life. But when she closed her eyes, all she could see was him, the stranger. The way he'd looked at her, the way his hands had felt. Steady, certain, like he knew exactly how much pressure to use to keep her from falling. Emma pulled the blanket over her head and willed herself to sleep. She woke 6 hours later to her phone buzzing. For a moment, she thought about ignoring it. Then she saw the name on the screen. Mom. Emma hesitated, then answered. "Hello? Emma." Her mother's voice was clipped, efficient. "I wanted to make sure you received Lila's invitation." "Of course. Not how are you? Not I know this is hard, just straight to business." "I got it," Emma said. "Good. I know this situation is complicated, but Lila wants you there. She's your sister." Emma closed her eyes. "Does she?" "Don't be difficult, Emma. This day is important to her. You know how she is. She gets anxious when there's conflict. She needs her family. She needed her family 4 months ago, too, Emma said quietly. That didn't stop her. Her mother sighed. Ryan wasn't right for you anyway. You two didn't have anything in common. Lila and Ryan are much better suited. The words landed like a slap. I have to go, Emma said. Emma. She hung up. For a long moment, she just sat there, staring at the wall. Then she threw the phone across the room. It hit the wall and clattered to the floor, the screen cracking in a starburst pattern. Emma didn't care. She pulled her knees to her chest and finally let herself cry. The next 2 days passed in a fog. Emma went to work, came home, slept, repeated. She didn't answer her mother's calls. She didn't open the drawer where the invitation was hidden. She didn't think about Lila or Ryan or the wedding that was 8 weeks away. She especially didn't think about the stranger, except she did. At the most random moments, his face would flash through her mind. The way he'd looked at her, the way his hands had felt, the way he'd said careful like he actually meant it. It was ridiculous. He was a criminal. A dangerous man with a gun who had stopped a bus in the middle of the night for reasons she didn't understand and didn't want to know, but she couldn't stop thinking about him. On Thursday, she picked up a double shift. It was easier than being alone with her thoughts. By Friday, she'd worked 60 hours in 4 days. On Saturday morning, she woke to a knock on her door. Emma froze. Nobody knocked on her door. Ever. She pulled on a sweatshirt and crept to the peephole. A man stood in the hallway, tall, well-dressed, with close-cropped gray hair and the kind of posture that screamed military training. Miss Caldwell? He called through the door. Emma's heart slammed against her ribs. Who are you? My name is Marcus. I work for someone who would like to speak with you. I'm not interested. He thought you might say that. The man's voice was calm, patient. He asked me to tell you that it's about Tuesday night and that you're not in any danger. Emma's breath caught. Tuesday night, the stranger. What does he want? She asked. To apologize and to explain. Tell him I don't need an explanation. He thought you might say that too. There was a pause. He's waiting downstairs in the car. He won't come up unless you agree to see him, but he'd appreciate 5 minutes of your time. Emma pressed her forehead against the door. This was insane. She should tell this man to leave. She should call the police. She should do literally anything except go downstairs and get into a car with a stranger who'd held her at gunpoint 2 days ago. But a small, reckless part of her, the part that had been silent for 4 months, the part that had swallowed betrayal and humiliation without a sound, but wanted to know. Wanted to know why he'd caught her, why he'd looked at her like that, why he'd let her go. 5 minutes, she heard herself say. The car was a black sedan parked at the curb, expensive, the kind of car Emma had only ever seen in movies. Marcus opened the back door. Inside, the stranger sat waiting. He looked different in daylight, older than she'd thought, mid-30s maybe. His dark hair was swept back and he wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Emma made in 6 months. But his eyes were the same, sharp, unreadable, dangerous. Miss Caldwell, he said, thank you for coming down. Emma didn't get in the car. She stood on the sidewalk, arms crossed. You have 5 minutes. Then I'll be efficient. He gestured to the seat beside him. Please. She hesitated, then slid into the car. Marcus closed the door behind her. The stranger studied her for a moment, his gaze steady. My name is Alessandro Moretti, he said finally, and I owe you an apology. For what? Emma asked. Stopping my bus, scaring me half to death? For all of it. His voice was quiet, controlled. What you saw on Tuesday was not meant to involve civilians. You were never supposed to be there. Then what was I supposed to see? Nothing. Alessandro's jaw tightened. It was business, private business, the kind that doesn't usually spill into public streets. Emma's stomach twisted. You're a criminal. Yes. The bluntness of it startled her. Then why are you here? She asked. Why do you care if I was scared? Alessandro leaned back slightly, his eyes never leaving hers. Because when I caught you, he said slowly, I saw something I didn't expect. What? Someone who'd already been hurt. The words hit her like a punch. Emma looked away, her throat tight. You don't know anything about me. I know enough. Alessandro's voice softened, just slightly. I know you work 60-hour weeks at St. Catherine's. I know you live alone. I know you haven't had a visitor in 4 months. And I know that when you fell, you looked at me like you expected me to let you hit the ground. Emma's breath caught. You've been watching me. I've been making sure you're safe. That's not comforting. It wasn't meant to be comforting, Alessandro said. It was meant to be honest. Emma turned back to him, anger flaring in her chest. Why? Why would you care if I'm safe? You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. No, Alessandro agreed. I don't. Then why? For a long moment, he didn't answer. Then he said quietly, because when I looked into your life, I found out who you are, and more importantly, who you're connected to. Emma frowned. What are you talking about? Alessandro reached into his jacket and pulled out a slim folder. He handed it to her. Inside were photos, articles, financial records, and at the top, a name she recognized. Victor Morrison, Ryan's father. I don't understand, Emma said, her hand shaking. Victor Morrison is my oldest enemy, Alessandro said. We've been circling each other for 15 years. He's cost me money, territory, and people I cared about. And 3 months ago, I found leverage. Emma's stomach dropped. Ryan? Yes. Ryan Morrison is Victor's only son, and according to my sources, he was in a serious relationship with a woman named Emma Caldwell. Alessandro's eyes were dark, unreadable. A woman who would have made excellent leverage. Emma felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. You were going to use me, she whispered. I was, Alessandro said, until I did more research, and I found out that Ryan Morrison had recently started a relationship with your sister, that you'd been replaced. The word stung. Emma looked down at the folder, her vision blurring. So I'm useless to you. No, Alessandro said sharply. You're free. She looked up, startled. You were never part of their world, he continued. You were collateral damage, a piece they discarded without a second thought. And when I realized that, I realized something else. What? That you deserved better than to be caught in the crossfire of their choices. Emma's throat tightened. Why do you care? Because I know what it's like to be invisible, Alessandro said quietly. And I know what it's like to be seen only when someone needs something from you. The car fell silent. Emma stared at him, her mind racing. This didn't make sense. None of it made sense. What do you want from me? She asked finally. Alessandro's gaze held hers. Lunch, he said. Emma blinked. What? Lunch. Tomorrow. At the Sterling Room. The name hit her like ice water. That's where Lila's getting married, she said. I know. Alessandro's expression didn't change. And I want you to see something. What? That you have choices, Emma, more than you think. She shook her head. I don't understand. You will. Alessandro leaned forward slightly. One lunch. That's all I'm asking. After that, if you want nothing to do with me, I'll disappear. You'll never see me again. Emma's heart pounded. And if I say no now? Then I'll still disappear, Alessandro said. But you'll spend the rest of your life wondering what I was going to show you. Damn him. He was right. One lunch, Emma said finally. Alessandro's mouth curved into the faintest smile. One lunch. Marcus drove her back to her building. As Emma climbed out of the car, Alessandro called after her. Emma? She turned. You're not invisible, he said quietly. Not to me. The door closed, the car pulled away, and Emma stood on the sidewalk, her heart racing, wondering what the hell she'd just agreed to. Emma didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every word Alessandro had said. The folder sat on her nightstand, unopened since she'd brought it upstairs. She didn't need to look at it again. The contents were already burned into her memory. Victor Morrison, Ryan's father, Alessandro's enemy. She'd met Victor exactly twice. Once at a charity gala Ryan had dragged her to, where the older man had looked through her like she was furniture. And once at Ryan's birthday dinner, where Victor had spent the entire meal on his phone, barely acknowledging anyone at the table except to criticize Ryan's career choices. Emma had thought he was just a wealthy, arrogant businessman. Cold, yes. Unpleasant, certainly. But a criminal? She rolled onto her side, pulling the blanket tighter around herself. Alessandro had called him an enemy. Not a competitor, not a rival. An enemy. And Ryan was caught in the middle of it. Except Ryan wasn't caught in anything anymore. Ryan had moved on. Ryan was marrying Lila in 8 weeks, in the exact restaurant where Emma was supposed to meet Alessandro tomorrow. The thought made her stomach turn. She should cancel. She should text Marcus. He'd given her his number before she'd gotten out of the car, and tell him she'd changed her mind. This was insane. Alessandro Moretti was a criminal who'd admitted to planning to use her as leverage. The fact that he'd changed his mind didn't make him safe, but he'd also said she wasn't invisible, and no one had said that to her in a very long time. Emma closed her eyes and forced herself to breathe. One lunch, that was all. She'd go, she'd listen to whatever he wanted to tell her, and then she'd walk away. She'd go back to her quiet life, her double shifts, her studio apartment where nobody knocked on the door. She'd go back to being invisible. The thought settled over her like a weight. By the time dawn broke through her window, Emma still hadn't slept. She got up, showered, and stood in front of her closet for 20 minutes, trying to figure out what someone wore to lunch with a dangerous man at the restaurant where her sister was getting married. Eventually, she settled on the only nice dress she owned, a simple navy sheath she'd bought for job interviews 3 years ago. It was professional, unremarkable, safe. She paired it with her only good shoes, applied minimal makeup, and pulled her hair into a neat bun. When she looked in the mirror, she saw exactly what she always saw, a woman who blended into backgrounds, a woman who could walk through a room and leave no impression. Perfect. Marcus picked her up at 11:30. The drive to the Sterling room took 15 minutes. Emma spent the entire ride staring out the window, her hands twisted together in her lap. "He's not what you think," Marcus said suddenly. Emma glanced at him. "What?" "Mr. Moretti. He's not what people think." Marcus kept his eyes on the road. "He's hard. He's done things most people couldn't stomach. But he's not cruel, and he doesn't lie." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you look terrified, and you shouldn't be." Marcus pulled up to the curb outside the restaurant. "He won't hurt you, Ms. Caldwell. That's not why you're here." Emma's throat tightened. "Then why am I here?" Marcus met her eyes in the rearview mirror. "I think he wants to give you something nobody else has." "What's that?" "A choice." Before Emma could respond, Marcus was out of the car, opening her door. The Sterling room rose in front of her, all glass and steel and elegant lighting. Through the window, she could see white-clothed tables, crystal stemware, the harbor stretching out beyond. This was where Lila would marry Ryan, where Emma's mother would smile for photos, where everyone would celebrate a love built on the wreckage of Emma's. Her hand started shaking. "Miss Caldwell?" She looked up. Marcus was waiting, patient. Emma took a breath and stepped out of the car. Inside, the restaurant was quieter than she'd expected. A hostess in a black dress greeted them immediately, her smile professional and distant. "Mr. Moretti's table," Marcus said. The hostess's demeanor changed instantly. Her smile became genuine, almost nervous. "Of course, right this way." She led them through the main dining room, past couples having leisurely brunches, past businessmen in expensive suits, to a private section Emma hadn't known existed. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the harbor. The table was set for 2, and Alessandro was waiting. He stood when he saw her, buttoning his suit jacket in a gesture that seemed automatic. Today, he wore charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, with a black shirt underneath. No tie. He looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine spread about powerful men. "Emma," he said. "Thank you for coming." His use of her first name felt intimate, presumptuous. She didn't correct him. "Marcus said you wanted to show me something," Emma said, staying where she was. "I do. But first, sit, please." Alessandro gestured to the chair across from him. Emma hesitated, then moved forward. A server appeared from nowhere, pulling out her chair. She sat stiffly, her hands in her lap. Alessandro sat across from her. his dark eyes steady on her face. "Are you hungry?" he asked. "No." "You should eat anyway. You worked a double shift yesterday. Another one the day before that." He signaled the server. "We'll start with the tasting menu." Emma's spine stiffened. "How do you know my schedule?" "I told you. I've been paying attention." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer I'm going to give." Alessandro leaned back slightly. "You can be angry about it if you want, but it won't change the fact that you haven't had a proper meal in 4 days." The server returned with water, with wine, with small plates Emma didn't recognize. She stared at the food, her stomach twisting. "I don't understand what this is," she said quietly. "What you want from me. I told you, I want to give you a choice." "About what?" Alessandro picked up his wine glass, studying her over the rim. "Tell me about your sister's wedding." Emma's breath caught. "What?" "The invitation, the one you received on Tuesday. Tell me about it." "Why?" "Because I want to understand." Emma looked away, toward the windows. Outside, the harbor was gray and choppy, matching the sky. "There's nothing to understand. My sister is marrying my ex-boyfriend. It's humiliating and awful, and there's nothing I can do about it. You could not go. My mother would never forgive me. And you care about that?" Emma's jaw tightened. "She's still my mother. She chose Lila over you." The words were a knife between her ribs. "You don't know that," Emma said, but her voice was weak. "Don't I?" Alessandro set down his wine glass. "Your mother called you 3 days ago. She told you that Ryan wasn't right for you anyway, that Lila and Ryan are better suited. She asked you to come to the wedding because Lila gets anxious during conflict." Emma's head snapped toward him. "How do you sit?" "I told you, I pay attention." Alessandro's expression didn't change. "She didn't ask how you were. She didn't acknowledge your pain. She asked you to set yourself on fire to keep your sister warm." "Stop." "Why? Because it's true?" "Because you don't know me." Emma's voice rose. Several diners in the main room glanced over. She forced herself to lower her voice. "You've known me for 4 days. You don't get to analyze my life like you understand it." "You're right," Alessandro said calmly. "I don't know you. Not yet. But I know what it looks like when someone's been made to feel invisible their whole life. And I know what happens when that person finally breaks." Emma's hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against the table. "What do you want from me, Alessandro?" He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I want to offer you revenge." The word hung between them like smoke. Emma stared at him. "What?" "Your sister is marrying Ryan Morrison in 8 weeks. Here, in this restaurant." Alessandro gestured around them. "I can stop it." "Stop it how?" "Victor Morrison has built his empire on financial crimes, money laundering, fraud, offshore accounts that violate about 30 different federal laws. I've spent 5 years collecting evidence. I could hand it to the FBI tomorrow and watch his entire world collapse." Emma's breath caught. "You'd destroy Ryan's father." "I'd destroy Ryan's father, Ryan's inheritance, and Ryan's future." Alessandro's voice was cold, clinical. "Within a week, the Morrison name would be synonymous with scandal. No one would want to be associated with them, including your sister." "You can't be serious." "I'm always serious about business." "This isn't business." "Wait." Emma pushed back from the table slightly. "This is revenge. This is—" "Justice," Alessandro finished. "This is justice for a woman who was betrayed by the 2 people who should have protected her. Lila didn't betray me. She just fell in love with your boyfriend?" Alessandro's eyebrow raised. "That's not how love works, Emma. Love doesn't make you hurt the people you're supposed to care about. Selfishness does." Emma felt tears burning behind her eyes. She blinked them back furiously. "Why? Why would you do this? You said yourself I'm useless to you. I'm not leverage anymore. So why would you destroy Victor Morrison for me?" Alessandro leaned forward, his elbows on the table, his eyes locked on hers. "Because I want to," he said simply. "Because watching someone like Victor Morrison face consequences appeals to me. And because I think you deserve to see the people who hurt you face consequences too. I don't want revenge." "Don't you?" The question landed like a blow. Did she want revenge? Emma had spent 4 months telling herself she was fine, that she'd moved on, that Lila and Ryan deserved each other and she deserved better and everything happened for a reason. But late at night, when she couldn't sleep, she imagined walking into that wedding. She imagined Lila in a white dress, Ryan in a tuxedo, their hands clasped together at the altar. She imagined her mother crying happy tears. She imagined being invisible in the back row, watching the two people who'd shattered her celebrate their betrayal. And yes, she wanted revenge. Even if I did, Emma said quietly, what would you get out of it? Satisfaction. And your company. Emma frowned. What? Alessandro sat back, his expression unreadable. I'm proposing a transaction. I destroy the Morrisons. You spend time with me. Spend time doing what? Whatever I ask. Emma's stomach dropped. No, absolutely not. I'm not talking about sex, Alessandro said flatly. I'm talking about your presence, dinners, events, conversations. I want you visible at my side. Why? Because it serves my purposes and because I find you interesting. I'm not interesting. I'm a nurse's aide who lives in a studio apartment and works 60-hour weeks. You're a woman who walked away from betrayal without burning anything down, Alessandro said. You're a woman who's been invisible your entire life and never once demanded to be seen. That's interesting to me. Emma shook her head. This is insane. Perhaps, but it's also an opportunity. Alessandro's voice softened slightly. Think about it, Emma. You could walk into your sister's wedding and watch her marry Ryan knowing you did nothing. Or you could walk away from all of it knowing you chose yourself for once. By letting you destroy people's lives? By letting me destroy the lives of people who hurt you, Alessandro corrected. There's a difference. The server returned with more food. Emma stared at her plate, her mind racing. This was wrong. This was insane. Alessandro was a criminal offering to commit more crimes on her behalf. And all he wanted in return was her company. Except it wasn't just her company, was it? He wanted her visible, at his side, like she was... You want to use me, Emma said slowly. Just like you planned to before. You want people to see me with you. Alessandro didn't deny it. Yes. Why? Because Victor Morrison still has resources, still has allies, and seeing you with me will send a message. What message? That I took something he thought he had. Alessandro's smile was sharp, cold. Ryan Morrison discarded you. I picked you up. That's the narrative. Emma's chest tightened. So I'm still leverage. No, you're a statement. Alessandro leaned forward again. But here's the difference, Emma. I'm offering you a choice. You can say no, walk out of here, and never see me again. The Morrisons will continue their lives. Your sister will have her wedding, and you'll go back to being invisible. Or you say yes, you let me destroy them, you spend time with me, and you find out what it feels like to be seen. Emma's hands were shaking again. She pressed them together in her lap, trying to steady herself. How long? She asked. How long what? How long would I have to spend time with you? Alessandro considered. A week, 7 days. If after that you want nothing more to do with me, you're free to go. And you'd still destroy the Morrisons? Consider it already done. Emma looked at him, really looked at him. Alessandro Moretti was dangerous. He was a criminal. He'd admitted to planning to use her, to watching her, to knowing details about her life he had no right to know. But he was also the first person in 4 months who'd looked at her and seen something worth protecting. What happens in this week? She asked carefully. You stay close to me. You come to dinners, events. You meet people in my world. You let me keep you safe. Safe from what? From whatever comes next. Victor Morrison isn't a man who takes attacks lying down. When I move against him, there will be fallout. I want you protected from it. Emma's breath caught. You're saying I'd be in danger. I'm saying I won't let you be in danger. Alessandro's voice was firm. But I need you where I can see you. In your world. Yes. Emma closed her eyes. This was insane. Everything about this was insane. But the alternative was going back to her apartment, going back to her shifts, going back to being the woman nobody noticed until they needed something from her, going back to watching Lila marry Ryan and pretending it didn't destroy her. She opened her eyes. 1 week, she said. 7 days, and then I'm free to go. Yes. And you won't ask me for anything I'm not willing to give. You have my word. Your word, Emma repeated. The word of a criminal. Alessandro's mouth curved into a faint smile. The word of a man who's never broken a promise to someone under his protection. Emma picked up her water glass, her hand steady despite everything. She took a sip, letting the cold liquid ground her. When do we start? She asked. Now. Alessandro signaled to Marcus, who appeared from somewhere Emma hadn't noticed. He handed Alessandro a slim black box. Alessandro slid it across the table to her. What is this? Emma asked. Open it. She did. Inside was a phone, brand new, sleek, expensive. Your phone has a cracked screen, Alessandro said. Use this one. My number's already programmed in. So is Marcus's. So is my driver's, my head of security, and my personal physician. Emma stared at the phone. I can't accept this. You can. You will. If you're going to be close to me, I need to be able to reach you, and I need to know you can reach help if you need it. Alessandro's expression was serious. This isn't a gift, Emma. It's a tool. Use it. Slowly, Emma picked up the phone. It felt heavier than it should. There's something else, Alessandro said. He pulled a second item from his jacket, a key card. There's a loft in the Harbor District, 20th floor. It's secure, it's private, and it's yours for the next week. Emma's head snapped up. I have an apartment. You have a studio with broken locks and no security system in a building where anyone can walk in off the street. Alessandro's voice was flat. If you're going to be associated with me, you're not staying there. I'm not moving in with you. You're not. The loft is separate from my residences. You'll have complete privacy, but you'll also have security. Guards in the lobby, cameras on every floor. No one gets near you without going through multiple checkpoints. Emma shook her head. This is too much. It's necessary. For who? For you? For both of us. Alessandro leaned forward, his voice dropping. Emma, the moment you walked in here with me, you became visible. To my people, to Victor Morrison's people, to everyone who watches what I do and who I do it with. I can't protect you if you're scattered across the city in an apartment with no security. I never asked you to protect me. No, you asked me to give you a choice. I did. You chose this. Now let me do what I am good at. Emma's heart was racing. Everything was moving too fast. The phone, the apartment, the way Alessandro talked about protection, like it was inevitable. I need time to think, she said. You have until tonight. Marcus will drive you home. Pack what you need. He'll take you to the loft at 8. And if I don't show up? Alessandro's eyes were steady on hers. Then I'll know you've changed your mind, and you'll never see me again. The weight of the choice pressed down on her. Emma stood, her legs unsteady. I need to go. Alessandro stood as well. Think about it, Emma. Really think about it. Not about what you should do, about what you want. She didn't answer. She turned and walked toward the exit, Marcus falling into step behind her. At the door, she paused and looked back. Alessandro was still standing at the table, watching her. Even from across the room, she could feel the weight of his attention. She turned away and walked out. In the car, Marcus was silent for several blocks. Then he said, You're afraid. Emma looked at him. Shouldn't I be? Of Mr. Moretti? No. Of what happens when you stop being invisible? Marcus met her eyes in the rearview mirror. Maybe. He's a criminal. He is. He wants to use me. He wants to protect you. There's a difference. Is there? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I've worked for Mr. Moretti for 8 years. I've seen him make a lot of deals. I've seen him negotiate with people who had everything to lose. And I've never once seen him offer someone a choice without meaning it. Why are you telling me this? Because I think you're used to people lying to you, and I think you're waiting for him to do the same. Marcus pulled up to her building. He won't. Whatever else he is, he's not a liar. Emma got out of the car. She stood on the sidewalk, the phone heavy in her pocket, the keycard burning against her palm. Marcus leaned out the window. 8 o'clock, Ms. Caldwell. The loft address is programmed into the phone. Then he drove away. Emma climbed the stairs to her apartment, her mind spinning. Inside, everything looked exactly the same furniture she'd had since college, the same dishes in the sink, the same crack in the ceiling above her bed, the same life she'd been living for 27 years. She pulled out the new phone Alessandro had given her, turned it on. There were only 6 contacts programmed in. She clicked on Alessandro's name. For a long moment, she stared at the screen. Then she opened her closet and started packing. At 7:45, there was a knock on her door. Emma opened it to find Marcus waiting. "Ready?" he asked. She looked back at her apartment one more time, at the invitation still shoved in the drawer by the stove, at the cracked phone on the floor, at the life she was about to walk away from. "Yes," she said. The loft was nothing like Emma had expected. It wasn't cold or sterile. It was warm. Exposed brick walls, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor, furniture that looked comfortable and lived in. The kitchen was stocked. The bathroom had more towels than one person could possibly need. There was a bedroom with a massive bed and soft lighting, a closet already filled with clothes in her size. Emma stood in the middle of the living room, her bag at her feet, trying to process what was happening. A note sat on the kitchen counter. She picked it up. "Welcome. Make yourself comfortable. I'll see you tomorrow." Emma set the note down and walked to the windows. Outside, the city stretched out in every direction, lights flickering on as darkness fell, the harbor glittering like black glass. For the first time in 4 months, Emma didn't feel invisible. She felt terrified. And she felt alive. Her new phone buzzed, a text from Alessandro. "Did you make it safely?" Emma stared at the message. Then slowly she typed back, "Yes." His response came immediately. "Good. Sleep well, Emma. Tomorrow, everything changes." She set the phone down and walked to the bedroom. She didn't know what she'd just agreed to. She didn't know if Alessandro Moretti was her salvation or her destruction. But as she lay down in a bed that felt like clouds, in an apartment that felt like a dream, Emma realized something. For the first time in her life, she'd chosen herself. And whatever came next, she'd chosen it too. Emma woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows. For a disorienting moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then it came back in a rush. The loft. Alessandro. The deal she'd made. She sat up slowly, her heart already racing. The bed was absurdly comfortable, the sheets softer than anything she'd ever owned. Through the windows, the harbor stretched out calm and gray in the early morning light. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A message from Alessandro. "Good morning. A car will pick you up at 9. Wear something comfortable." Emma checked the time, 7:30. She had 90 minutes to shower, eat, and mentally prepare herself for whatever today would bring. She found coffee already programmed in the kitchen machine, along with fresh pastries in a box that hadn't been there last night. Someone had come in while she slept. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, it felt almost thoughtful. By 8:45, she was dressed in jeans and a sweater from the closet that fit perfectly. The clothes were expensive but understated. Someone had paid attention to her style, or lack thereof. At exactly 9 o'clock, her phone buzzed again. Downstairs. Emma grabbed her jacket and rode the elevator down. The lobby was sleek and modern, with 2 security guards who nodded at her as she passed. Outside, a black sedan waited at the curb. Marcus held the door open. "Good morning, Ms. Caldwell." "Where are we going?" Emma asked as she slid into the back seat. "Mr. Moretti will explain." The drive took 20 minutes, winding through the city until they reached a neighborhood Emma didn't recognize. Old warehouses converted into expensive lofts, trendy restaurants, art galleries with minimalist window displays. Marcus pulled up in front of a building with no visible signage, just a black door with a security camera above it. "This way," Marcus said. Inside, the space opened into something unexpected. A gym. But not the kind Emma had ever seen. This was private, exclusive, boxing rings, weight equipment, training mats. And in the center of it all, Alessandro. He wore athletic clothes, black training pants, a fitted shirt that showed the definition of his shoulders and arms. He was sparring with someone, his movements precise and controlled. Each punch landed with deadly accuracy. Emma stood frozen in the doorway, watching. Alessandro's opponent was bigger, broader, but Alessandro was faster. He moved like violence was a language he spoke fluently. every motion economical and brutal. When he landed a combination that sent his opponent stumbling back, he stopped, stepped back, offered his hand. The other man took it, grinning despite the split lip. "You're getting faster." "You're getting slower," Alessandro replied, but there was warmth in it. Then he turned and saw Emma. Something shifted in his expression. The cold focus melted into something softer. He grabbed a towel from a nearby bench and walked toward her. "You came," he said. "You told me to." "I asked. There's a difference." Alessandro wiped sweat from his face. "Thank you for trusting me." Emma glanced around the gym. "What is this place?" "Somewhere I come to think, to remember what I'm capable of." He gestured toward the rings. "Have you ever hit anything?" "What?" "Hit something, punched, fought back." Emma's throat tightened. "No." "Would you like to?" She stared at him. "I don't understand." Alessandro's eyes were steady on hers. "You've spent your whole life swallowing your anger, being quiet, being good. I'm asking if you'd like to hit something instead." Emma's hands started shaking. She pressed them together. "Why?" "Because I think you need it, and because I want to see what you look like when you stop holding back." Before Emma could respond, a woman appeared from the back of the gym. She was tall, muscular, with her dark hair pulled into a tight braid. She moved with the same controlled grace Alessandro had. "This is Sofia," Alessandro said. "She's going to teach you." Sofia smiled. It was genuine, warm. "Come on, let's wrap your hands." Emma looked at Alessandro. He nodded once. Permission, encouragement. She followed Sofia to one of the training areas. For the next hour, Sofia taught her the basics. How to make a fist, how to stand. "Don't think," Sofia said. "Just feel." "Don't think," Sofia said. "Just feel. Feel the anger, the hurt, everything you've been carrying, and let it out." Emma tried. She really tried. But every time she threw a punch, she held back, pulled it at the last second. "You're afraid," Sofia observed, "of hitting you? Of being angry." Sofia stepped back, her expression knowing. "You've been taught that anger is ugly, that good women don't rage. But anger isn't the enemy, Emma. Silence is." The words hit harder than any punch could have. Emma looked down at her wrapped hands, thought about the invitation, about Lila's handwriting, about Ryan's face when she'd walked in on them, about her mother's voice telling her that Ryan wasn't right for her anyway, about every single time she'd swallowed her pain and smiled. "Again," Sofia said quietly. Emma planted her feet, raised her fists, and this time when she punched, she didn't hold back. The impact reverberated up her arm. Sofia caught the blow easily, but Emma felt it. The release, the power. "Better," Sofia said. "Again." Emma hit her again, and again. Each punch coming faster, harder. Her breath came in gasps. Sweat dampened her skin. And something inside her that had been locked down tight started to crack open, punched harder. "Good," Sofia encouraged. Punched harder. "Good," Sofia encouraged. "Don't stop. Let it out." Emma's vision blurred. She wasn't sure if it was sweat or tears. She kept punching, kept moving, kept releasing everything she'd carried for months, years, her entire life. When she finally stopped, she was gasping for air. Her arms shook, her whole body trembled. Sofia lowered her hands. "How do you feel?" Emma opened her mouth to say she was fine, that she was okay, that she was sorry for losing control, but what came out was, "I feel angry." "Good. You should be." Sofia handed her a water bottle. "Anger means you know you deserved better. That's not a bad thing. That's the beginning." Emma drank, her hands still shaking. When she looked up, Alessandro was standing at the edge of the mat. She didn't know how long he'd been watching. His expression was unreadable. But there was something in his eyes, something that looked almost like pride. "Come on," he said. "We need to talk." He led her to a private office at the back of the gym. Inside, the space was simple. A desk, 2 chairs, a window overlooking the street. Alessandro closed the door behind them. "Sit," he said. Emma sat. Her whole body ached in a way that felt strange but not entirely unpleasant. Alessandro leaned against the desk, arms crossed. "I need to tell you something about what happens next." Emma's stomach tightened. Okay. Tomorrow, I'm moving against Victor Morrison. The evidence I have will be delivered to federal investigators. Within 48 hours, he'll be arrested. Ryan will likely be implicated. Their assets will be frozen. Everything they've built will start to collapse. Emma's breath caught. Tomorrow? Yes, which means I need you to understand something. Alessandro's voice was serious, controlled. The moment that happens, you become a target. A target for what? Victor will want to know who gave up the information. He'll look for leverage, for ways to strike back, and when he sees you with me, he'll make assumptions. That I helped you. Yes, or that I'm using you to hurt him through Ryan. Alessandro's jaw tightened. Either way, you become valuable, which makes you dangerous to be around. Emma's heart was pounding. Then why bring me into this at all? Because I can protect you, but only if you stay close. Only if you trust me. Alessandro moved closer, his voice dropping. This week isn't about revenge anymore, Emma. It's about keeping you safe while everything burns down around us. You make it sound like a war. It is a war. I've been fighting it for 15 years. You just became a civilian casualty I refuse to accept. Emma stared at him. Why? Why do you care this much? Alessandro was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Because when I caught you that night, when you looked at me like you expected me to let you fall, I saw something I recognized. Someone who'd been hurt so many times they stopped believing anyone would catch them. And that matters to you? More than it should. Alessandro's voice was rough. I've done terrible things, Emma. I've hurt people who deserved it, and some who didn't. I've built an empire on violence and fear, but I've never once protected someone who didn't need protection for strategic reasons. Until me. Until you. Emma's throat tightened. I still don't understand why. Neither do I. Alessandro moved to the window, staring out at the street. But I'm not going to stop asking myself to. And I'm not going to stop protecting you while I figure it out. Emma stood slowly, her legs still shaky from the training. What if I want to leave? What if this gets too dangerous and I want out? Alessandro turned to face her. Then you leave. I meant what I said. After 7 days, you're free to go. But until then, I need you where I can see you. At your side. Yes. Emma walked closer to him, stopping a few feet away, close enough to see the faint scar above his eyebrow, close enough to see the tension in his jaw. What happens tonight? She asked. Tonight you meet my family. Emma's eyes widened. Your family? Not blood family. The people I trust. The ones who've stood with me for years. They need to see you. Need to know who you are and why you matter. Alessandro's expression softened slightly. They'll protect you too, but they need to meet you first. Will they hate me for being connected to Ryan? They'll respect you for surviving what you survived, and they'll respect you for choosing to stand with me. Alessandro reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. Claim to love you. Emma looked down at claim to love you. Emma looked down at their joined hands. I'm scared. You should be. Fear keeps you sharp, but fear doesn't mean you're weak. Sophia said anger means I know I deserved better. Sophia's right. You did deserve better. You deserve everything they never gave you. Alessandro's thumb brushed over her knuckles. And I'm going to make sure you see that. Emma's breath caught. The air between them felt charged, dangerous. She should step back, should pull her hand away, should remember that this man was a criminal who'd admitted to planning to use her. But he was also the first person who'd ever caught her when she fell. What time tonight? She asked quietly. 7. Marcus will bring you. Alessandro released her hand, but his eyes stayed on hers. Wear something that makes you feel powerful. I don't own anything that makes me feel powerful. Then wear something from the closet I had stocked for you. Someone with excellent taste chose everything in there. Despite everything, Emma almost smiled. You? Me. Alessandro's mouth curved slightly. I pay attention, remember? Marcus drove Emma back to the loft just after noon. She spent the afternoon pacing, trying to calm her racing thoughts. Tomorrow, Alessandro would destroy the Morrisons. Tomorrow, everything would change. And tonight, she'd meet the people who existed in Alessandro's dangerous world. She showered, dried her hair, stared at the closet full of clothes that fit perfectly. Finally, she chose a black dress. Simple, elegant, with long sleeves and a neckline that was modest but striking. She paired it with heels that made her 3 inches taller. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. She looked like someone who belonged in Alessandro's world, someone who could stand beside a powerful man and not disappear into his shadow, someone who wasn't invisible. At exactly 7 o'clock, Marcus knocked. Emma grabbed her jacket and followed him down. The drive took them out of the city, into the hills where massive estates sat behind gates and walls. Marcus pulled up to one of the largest, a sprawling property with manicured grounds and security that made the loft look unprotected by comparison. "Mr. Moretti's home," Marcus said. Emma's hands were shaking again. She pressed them together in her lap. "How many people will be here?" "Just family, maybe 10. "That's not just family." Marcus met her eyes in the rearview mirror. In Mr. Moretti's world, family isn't about blood. It's about loyalty. Everyone inside that house would die for him, and now they'll protect you too. The weight of that settled over her like a blanket. Marcus opened her door. Emma stepped out onto gravel that crunched beneath her heels. The house rose in front of her, warm lights glowing in the windows. The front door opened before she reached it. Alessandro stood in the doorway, wearing a black suit that made him look even more dangerous than usual. His eyes tracked over her, taking in the dress, the heels, the way she held herself. "You look beautiful," he said quietly. Emma's breath caught. "Thank you." He offered his hand. After a moment's hesitation, she took it. Inside, the house was warmer than she'd expected. Hardwood floors, comfortable furniture, art on the walls that looked original and expensive. Voices drifted from another room. Laughter. Alessandro led her toward the sound. They entered a large dining room where people were gathered around a table. The conversation stopped when they saw Emma. 10 faces turned toward her, some curious, some cautious, all assessing. "Everyone," Alessandro said, his hand still holding hers. "This is Emma." A woman stood first. She was elegant, older, with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "The nurse," she said. "The nurse's aide," Emma corrected automatically. The woman's mouth curved into a smile. "Someone who corrects powerful people. I like her already." She moved forward, taking Emma's free hand. "I'm Gabriella. I've known Alessandro since he was 17 and stupid." "I'm still stupid," Alessandro said dryly, "just better at hiding it." Gabriella laughed. She squeezed Emma's hand. "Welcome, child. Come, sit, meet the others." The next 20 minutes were a blur of names and faces. Marco, Alessandro's second in command, who shook her hand with surprising gentleness. Sophia from the gym, who smiled like they shared a secret. A man named Vincent, who owned half the restaurants in the city. A woman named Isabella, who ran logistics and looked at Emma like she was a puzzle to solve. They were criminals, every single one of them. Emma could see it in the way they moved, the way they spoke, the casual references to things that would send normal people running. But they were also warm, welcoming. They pulled out a chair for her, poured her wine, asked about her work at the hospital. "Alessandro says you're a fighter," Sophia said, grinning. "That you almost took my head off this morning." Emma felt her face heat. "I don't think that's accurate." "She's being modest," Alessandro said from beside her. He'd taken the seat at the head of the table, which put Emma directly at his right hand. "She has potential." "Potential for what?" Marco asked, his tone amused. "For not taking anyone's shit anymore," Sophia said. She raised her glass toward Emma. "To new beginnings." The others raised their glasses too. Emma lifted hers, her hand shaking slightly. "To new beginnings." They drank, and then Gabriella said, "Tell us about your sister." The room went quiet. Emma set down her glass carefully. "What about her?" "The one marrying the Morrison boy. Alessandro says she betrayed you." Gabriella's eyes were kind but unflinching. "I want to hear it from you." Emma glanced at Alessandro. He nodded slightly. "Permission." She took a breath. "Lila is my younger sister. We were close once. Or I thought we were. 4 months ago, I found out she'd been sleeping with my boyfriend, Ryan. We'd been together for 2 years. And you walked away," Gabriella said. It wasn't a question. Yes. Without a fight. I didn't see the point. There's always a point in fighting for yourself, Gabriella said firmly, even if you lose, especially if you lose. Emma's throat tightened. I didn't want to make it harder than it already was. For who? For them? Marco leaned forward. They didn't worry about making it hard for you. No, Emma admitted quietly. They didn't. Isabella spoke up, her voice cool and analytical. The wedding is in 7 weeks. At the Sterling Room. Your mother is helping plan it. Your sister sent you an invitation like nothing happened. Yes. And you were going to go. Emma looked down at her hands. I don't know. Maybe. My mother wanted me to. Your mother, Gabriella said, her tone sharp, wanted you to set yourself on fire to keep your sister warm. That's not love, child. That's cruelty. Tears burned behind Emma's eyes. She blinked them back. She's still my mother. Mothers are supposed to protect their children. All of them, not just the ones who shine the brightest. Gabriella reached across the table, taking Emma's hand. You deserved better. You still do. Emma's vision blurred. She nodded, not trusting her voice. Alessandro's hand found hers under the table, squeezed once, gentle, grounding. Tomorrow, he said to the room, I'm moving against Victor Morrison. The evidence goes to the FBI at dawn. Within days, he'll be arrested. Ryan will likely follow. Everything they've built will collapse. The room erupted, not in shock, in approval. Marco actually smiled. Sophia raised her glass again. Even Gabriella looked satisfied. About time, Vincent said. Morrison's been a cancer for too long. There will be fallout, Alessandro continued. Victor has allies, resources. He'll strike back however he can, which is why Emma stays under our protection, all of us. Every single person at that table nodded. She's family now, Gabriella said firmly. Anyone who touches her answers to all of us. Emma's chest tightened. These people didn't know her. They'd met her 20 minutes ago, but they were claiming her, protecting her, seeing her. Thank you, she whispered. Gabriella squeezed her hand again. Don't thank us yet, child. This is going to get dangerous, but you're not alone anymore. Remember that. Dinner was served. Emma barely tasted the food. She was too aware of Alessandro beside her, of the conversation flowing around her, of the weight of what was about to happen. These people were criminals. They'd admitted it. They'd probably done terrible things, but they'd also welcomed her without question, protected her without hesitation. And for the first time in months, Emma felt like she belonged somewhere. After dinner, Alessandro walked her out to the car. The night air was cold, sharp. Emma wrapped her jacket tighter around herself. That was intense, she said. They liked you. How can you tell? Gabriella called you child. She only does that for people she plans to keep. Alessandro stopped beside the car, turning to face her. Are you okay? I don't know. I think so. Emma looked up at him. Tomorrow really happens? Tomorrow really happens. And then everything changes. Yes. Alessandro's hand came up, brushing a strand of hair from her face. The gesture was gentle, almost tender. Are you afraid? Terrified. Good. Stay afraid. Stay sharp. But know that I won't let anything happen to you. Emma's heart was pounding. They were standing so close, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him, close enough that if she leaned forward just slightly, she could... She stepped back. I should go, she said quickly. Alessandro's hand dropped, but his eyes stayed on hers, dark and intense. Marcus will take you home. I'll see you tomorrow. When? Whenever you want. I'm at your disposal. Emma almost laughed. You're a crime boss. You can't be at my disposal. I can be anything I want. Right now, I want to be wherever you need me. Alessandro opened the car door. Sleep well, Emma. She got in. Marcus pulled away from the house, and Emma watched through the back window as Alessandro stood in the driveway, watching her leave. When they reached the loft, Emma went straight to the windows. The city stretched out below, alive with light. Somewhere out there, Ryan and Lila were planning their wedding. Her mother was probably calling florists. The Morrisons were going about their lives, not knowing that tomorrow everything would shatter. And Emma was standing in a luxury loft protected by criminals, chosen by a man who saw her when no one else did. Her phone buzzed. A message from Alessandro. "You were perfect tonight. My family loves you. So do I." Emma's breath stopped. She read the message 3 times. 4, 5. So do I. Not I'm starting to. Not I think I might. So do I. Her hand shook as she typed back. "You don't know me well enough to love me." His response came immediately. "I know you well enough to know you deserve to be loved. The rest is just details." Emma sank onto the couch, her heart racing. This was happening too fast. Everything was moving too fast. Alessandro was dangerous, powerful, a criminal who'd admitted to planning to use her. But he'd also caught her when she fell, protected her when she was vulnerable, seen her when everyone else looked through her. And now he was saying he loved her. Emma set the phone down and pressed her hands to her face. Tomorrow, the world would burn. And she had no idea if she'd burn with it or rise from the ashes. Emma didn't sleep that night either. She lay in the enormous bed, staring at Alessandro's message until the words blurred together. So do I. 3 words that felt like a detonation in her chest. She'd spent 4 months invisible, discarded, convinced she was the kind of person people left behind. And now a man who commanded empires was telling her he loved her. It didn't make sense. None of this made sense. But when dawn broke over the harbor, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Emma realized something. She didn't need it to make sense. She just needed to decide if she was brave enough to believe it. Her phone buzzed at 6:30. Alessandro. It's done. The evidence was delivered an hour ago. By noon, the world will know. Emma's hands trembled as she typed back. Are you okay? I'm perfect. Are you? She stared at the question. Was she okay? Yesterday, she'd punched a heavy bag until her arms shook. She'd met a room full of criminals who'd claimed her as a family. She'd worn a dress that made her feel powerful and sat at the right hand of a man who looked at her like she was something precious. No, she wasn't okay. She was transformed. I don't know what I am, she typed, but I'm not afraid anymore. His response came quickly. Good. Stay that way. I'm coming to get you in an hour. We need to be somewhere when the news breaks. Where? You'll see. Emma showered, dressed in jeans and a soft sweater, pulled her hair back. When she looked in the mirror, she saw someone different than the woman who'd opened that wedding invitation 6 days ago. Her eyes were sharper, her spine straighter. She looked like someone who'd made a choice and refused to regret it. At 7:30, there was a knock. Emma opened the door, expecting Marcus. Alessandro stood in the hallway instead. He wore dark jeans and a black sweater that made his shoulders look impossibly broad. His hair was slightly disheveled, like he'd run his hands through it repeatedly. But his eyes were steady, focused entirely on her. Hi, Emma said, suddenly breathless. Hi. Alessandro's voice was rough. Can I come in? She stepped back. He entered, and suddenly the spacious loft felt smaller. He moved to the windows, staring out at the city the way she had last night. In about 3 hours, he said quietly, every news station in the country will be reporting that Victor Morrison has been arrested for money laundering, fraud, and racketeering. His accounts are already frozen, his lawyers are scrambling, and Ryan's name is all over the documents. Emma's stomach tightened. Ryan will be arrested too? Probably not. He's stupid, but not stupid enough to sign anything incriminating. But his reputation is destroyed. His inheritance is gone. Everything Victor promised him turned to ash overnight. Alessandro turned to face her. Your sister's wedding to a Morrison just became a wedding to a scandal. Emma sank onto the couch. Lila will be devastated. Will she? Ryan was her prize, the successful businessman with the powerful father. Without that, he's just... Emma trailed off. Just a man who betrayed someone who loved him, Alessandro finished, just like she is. The truth of it settled over Emma like a weight. Lila hadn't fallen in love with Ryan. She'd fallen in love with what Ryan represented. Status, security, the chance to be the special one, the chosen one, the one who won. And now she'd won nothing. I should feel bad for her, Emma said quietly. But I don't. You shouldn't. She made her choices. Now she lives with the consequences. Alessandro moved closer, sitting on the coffee table in front of her. But I need you to understand something. This will get back to you eventually. Side. In their minds, that's the same as side. In their minds, that's the same as pulling the trigger. Alessandro's eyes were serious. They'll call you, beg you to fix it, make you feel guilty for their pain, and I need you to be ready for that. Emma's throat tightened. I don't know if I can handle that. Yes, you can. You're stronger than you think. Alessandro reached out, taking her hand. And you won't be alone. I'll be right beside you. Why? The question burst out of her. Why are you doing all of this? Why do you care so much? Alessandro was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, When I was 17, I watched my father get killed over a debt he couldn't pay. I was powerless, invisible. Nobody cared about the kid who lost everything. I survived by making myself impossible to ignore, by becoming someone people feared too much to dismiss. Emma's breath caught. I built an empire on that fear, Alessandro continued. I made sure no one could ever make me feel small again. But somewhere along the way, I forgot what it felt like to protect someone because I wanted to, not because it served a purpose. And then I caught you on that street corner, and you looked at me like you'd already given up on being caught, like you'd spent your whole life falling and no one had ever cared enough to reach out. Alessandro, I saw myself in you, Emma, the person I was before I learned to fight back. And I realized I had a choice. I could use you the way I'd planned, make you another piece on the board, or I could do something I haven't done in 15 years. What? Protect someone because they deserve it, not because it benefits me, because they deserve to be seen. Alessandro's grip on her hand tightened. You deserve to be seen, Emma, and I'm not going to stop making sure you are. Tears burned behind Emma's eyes. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Just stay. Be here. Let me prove that not everyone will let you fall. Emma looked at their joined hands. His were scarred, rough from years of violence. Hers were small, marked with the calluses of hospital work. They shouldn't fit together, but they did. Where are we going? She asked softly. Somewhere you can see what you helped create. Alessandro drove. Emma sat in the passenger seat of a car she didn't recognize, something low and fast that handled the city streets like it was made for them. She watched the buildings blur past, her heart pounding. They ended up at a small cafe in a neighborhood Emma had never been to. Alessandro parked, came around to open her door. Inside, the cafe was warm and nearly empty. A few people sat scattered at tables, reading newspapers, drinking coffee. Alessandro led her to a corner booth where they could see the door and the street outside. He ordered coffee for both of them without asking what she wanted. What are we doing here? Emma asked. Waiting. For what? You'll see. The coffee came. Emma wrapped her hands around the mug, letting the warmth seep into her palms. Outside, the city was waking up. People rushed past on their way to work. Cars honked. The morning unfolded like any other Tuesday. Except it wasn't any other Tuesday. At 9:45, the TV mounted in the corner of the cafe flickered to a news channel. The anchor's face was serious, professional. And then the breaking news banner appeared. Prominent businessman Victor Morrison, arrested in federal fraud investigation. Emma's breath stopped. The cafe went quiet. People looked up from their phones, their newspapers. Someone turned up the volume. The anchor's voice filled the space. Federal agents arrested Victor Morrison early this morning at his estate on charges of money laundering, fraud, and racketeering. Morrison, a prominent figure in real estate development and venture capital, allegedly used offshore accounts to hide millions in illegal profits. The investigation has been ongoing for several months, with evidence provided by an anonymous source close to Morrison's operations. Images flashed on the screen. Victor Morrison being led from his house in handcuffs. Federal agents carrying boxes of documents. The Morrison Company headquarters surrounded by news vans. And then Ryan's photo appeared. Morrison's son, Ryan Morrison, is also named in several documents, though no charges have been filed against him at this time. Sources say the younger Morrison was involved in several questionable business dealings that are now under federal scrutiny. Emma couldn't breathe. She stared at the screen, watching her ex-boyfriend's face broadcast to millions of people. Watching his life implode in real time, she should feel something. Guilt, regret, sympathy. but all she felt was a savage satisfaction. "How does it feel?" Alessandro asked quietly. Emma turned to look at him. "Powerful." His mouth curved into a smile. "Good. Remember that feeling. You're going to need it." On the screen, the news shifted to reaction shots. Reporters interviewing shocked business partners. Lawyers offering carefully worded statements. And then a clip of Lila. Emma's heart stopped. Her sister stood outside her apartment building, looking devastated. Her perfect hair was disheveled. Her eyes were red. A reporter shoved a microphone in her face. "Ms. Caldwell, you're engaged to Ryan Morrison. Did you have any knowledge of his father's illegal activities?" "No, of course not." Lila's voice was shrill, panicked. "Ryan and I had nothing to do with this. We're victims too." "Will you still be moving forward with the wedding?" Lila's face crumpled. I don't know. I need to talk to Ryan. I need to understand what's happening." The camera cut away. Emma exhaled slowly. "She's scared," Alessandro observed. "She thought she was marrying into power. Now she's marrying into scandal." "She'll leave him," Emma said with certainty. "Lila doesn't love Ryan. She loves what he represented. Without that, there's nothing left." "Then she's more like you than you think." Emma's head snapped toward him. "What?" "You didn't love Ryan either. You loved the idea that someone finally saw you, that someone chose you." Alessandro's eyes were steady on hers. "But he didn't really see you, did he? He saw a safe option, someone who wouldn't demand too much, someone who'd be grateful just to be chosen." The words hit like a physical blow, because they were true. Emma had loved Ryan, or thought she had, but looking back now she could see it clearly. She'd loved being loved. She'd loved not being invisible. She'd shaped herself into whatever Ryan needed because that was easier than demanding he see who she really was. "I was a coward," she whispered. "You were surviving. There's a difference." Alessandro reached across the table, taking her hand again. "But you're not surviving anymore, Emma. You're living, and there's no going back from that." Emma's phone buzzed. Then again. Then it started ringing. She looked at the screen. Mom. Her stomach twisted. "It's my mother. Answer it or don't. But if you do, remember something." "What?" "You don't owe her your pain. You don't owe her your silence. And you sure as hell don't owe her an apology for choosing yourself." Emma stared at the phone. It rang twice more, then went to voicemail. Immediately, a text came through. "Emma, please call me." Lila is hysterical. He read it, his expression hardening. "She needs her sister. We need to talk about this situation with the Morrisons. Call me back." Emma's hands shook. She showed Alessandro the message. He read it, his expression hardening. "She didn't ask if you were okay. She didn't ask how you're handling seeing Ryan's face all over the news. She went straight to what Lila needs." "That's how it's always been." "I know, but it doesn't have to be that way anymore." Alessandro's voice was firm. "You don't have to answer. You don't have to go running back to fix their problems. You can choose yourself." Emma looked at the message again, thought about Lila crying on camera, thought about her mother probably pacing the kitchen, trying to figure out how to salvage the wedding, protect the family reputation, thought about how neither of them had called when Emma's heart was breaking 4 months ago. She deleted the message, then she blocked her mother's number. "Emma," Alessandro started. "Don't." She cut him off. "Don't tell me I'll regret it. Don't tell me family is important. I know what I'm doing. I was going to say I'm proud of you." Emma's throat tightened. She looked up at him, this dangerous man who'd destroyed her enemies and caught her when she fell. "Thank you." "For what?" "For seeing me. For giving me permission to be angry. For making me feel like I matter." Alessandro's expression softened. "Emma, you've always mattered. You just couldn't see it because everyone around you was blind." Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Lila. "Emma, please. I know we haven't talked, but I need you. Ryan's life is falling apart. The wedding might be canceled. I don't know what to do. Please answer me." Emma stared at the message, felt the familiar pull of guilt, of responsibility, of being the good daughter who fixed things. Then she thought about Lila in Ryan's apartment 4 months ago. Thought about the wedding invitation with its perfect calligraphy. Thought about her mother's voice saying Ryan wasn't right for you anyway. She blocked Lila's number too. Alessandro watched her, his expression unreadable. How does it feel? Terrifying and liberating. Emma set her phone down. They're going to hate me. They already chose themselves over you. You're just returning the favor. That's not how they'll see it. I don't care how they see it. Alessandro leaned forward. Emma, listen to me. You spent your entire life making yourself small so other people could feel big. You swallowed your anger, your hurt, your needs. You let them take and take and take because you thought that's what love looked like. But it's not. Love doesn't ask you to disappear. It doesn't ask you to set yourself on fire. Real love sees you and says, I want all of you. The anger, the mess, the parts you think are too much. That's what I'm offering you. Emma's vision blurred. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you're strong enough to walk away from people who hurt you. I know you're brave enough to try something terrifying. I know you have a capacity for loyalty that people have taken advantage of your whole life. And I know that when you finally let yourself be angry, you're magnificent. Alessandro's voice dropped. I want to see what you become when you stop apologizing for existing. What if I'm not what you think I am? Then I'll love who you actually are instead of the idea of you. That's how this works. Emma couldn't hold back the tears anymore. They spilled down her cheeks, hot and freeing. Alessandro reached across the table, wiping them away with his thumb. Come here, he said softly. Emma slid out of her side of the booth and into his. He wrapped his arm around her, pulling her against his chest. She could feel his heartbeat, steady and strong, could smell the faint scent of his cologne mixed with coffee and something uniquely him. I'm scared, she whispered against his shoulder. I know, be scared, but don't run. Stay and see what happens when you choose yourself for once. They sat like that for a long time. The cafe hummed with quiet conversation around them. The news continued reporting on Victor Morrison's arrest, and Emma let herself be held by a man who'd promised to catch her every single time she fell. Eventually, Alessandro's phone rang. He answered without moving away from her. Yes? Marco's voice came through, professional and clipped. The Morrisons are scrambling. Victor's lawyers are trying to get him released on bail. Ryan's doing damage control, claiming he knew nothing, and someone leaked to the press that you were seen with Emma Caldwell. Alessandro's jaw tightened. When? This morning. A photo of you two entering the cafe. It's making the rounds on social media. People are connecting the dots. Ryan's ex-girlfriend is suddenly with his father's enemy. Emma pulled back, her heart racing. They know about us? Alessandro met her eyes. Do you trust me? Yes. Then let me handle this. He spoke into the phone again. Marco, prepare a statement. Keep it simple. Emma Caldwell is under my protection. Anyone who has questions can direct them to my lawyers. Boss, that's going to cause problems. I don't care. She's not a secret. She's not leverage. She's mine. Make that very clear. Emma's breath caught at the possessiveness in his voice. Understood, Marco said. What about the Morrisons? Victor's going to retaliate. Let him try. We're ready. Alessandro's voice was cold, controlled. Keep security tight. No one gets near Emma without going through multiple checkpoints. And Marco? If Ryan Morrison even looks in her direction, I want to know about it. Got it. Alessandro hung up, turned to Emma. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Okay. Are you having second thoughts? About any of this? About me? Emma looked at him. Really looked at him. Alessandro Moretti was dangerous. He'd admitted to terrible things. He destroyed the Morrisons without hesitation. He ran an empire built on fear and violence. But he'd also protected her, seen her, given her choices when everyone else had given her orders. And he was looking at her right now like she was the most important person in his world. No, Emma said firmly. No second thoughts. Even though the world is going to judge you for being with me, especially because of that, I've spent my whole life being judged for being too quiet, too boring, too invisible. At least now they're judging me for choosing something powerful. Alessandro's expression shifted into something fierce and proud. You're incredible. I'm terrified. You can be both. He cupped her face in his hands. Emma, I meant what I said last night. I love you. I know it's fast. I know it doesn't make sense. but I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Emma's heart was pounding so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. I don't know if I love you yet. I know, and that's okay. I'm not asking you to say it back. I'm just asking you to stay, to let this play out, to see where it goes. For the rest of the week? For as long as you want. The week was an excuse to get you close, and now that you're here, I don't want you to leave. Emma searched his eyes, found nothing but sincerity. What if I'm not ready for this? Then we'll go at your pace. But Emma? Alessandro's thumb brushed across her cheekbone. You're stronger than you think, and you're ready for more than you've let yourself believe. Before Emma could respond, his phone buzzed again. He glanced at it, his expression darkening. What? Emma asked. Ryan Morrison just posted on social media. He's calling the arrest a conspiracy, blaming unnamed enemies who wanted to destroy his family. Is he talking about you? He's talking around me. But everyone who matters knows exactly what he means. Alessandro's jaw tightened. He's trying to position himself as a victim, make people sympathize with him. Will it work? Not for long. The evidence is too damning. But he'll do damage before he goes down completely. Alessandro looked at her. Emma, he might reach out to you, try to use your history to manipulate you into helping him. You need to be ready for that. Emma's stomach twisted. What would he even say? That he's sorry, that he made mistakes, that he needs you. Everything he should have said 4 months ago when it might have mattered. Alessandro's voice was hard. Don't fall for it. He doesn't want you back. He wants leverage. He wants to find a way to hurt me through you. I know you wouldn't intentionally, but he knows how to make you feel guilty, how to make you question yourself. I need you to stay strong. Emma nodded slowly. I will. Promise me. I promise. Alessandro pulled her close again, pressing a kiss to her forehead. The gesture was tender, protective. Emma let herself lean into it, let herself be held by someone who saw her as something precious instead of convenient. They left the cafe an hour later. Outside, the city felt different. Emma kept expecting people to stare, to point, to recognize her from the photos that were apparently circulating online. But no one did. She was still invisible to strangers, just not to Alessandro. He kept his hand on the small of her back as they walked to the car, opened her door, made sure she was settled before closing it gently. As they drove back to the loft, Emma's phone buzzed repeatedly. Messages from numbers she didn't recognize. Friend requests on social media from reporters. Her inbox was flooded. Turn it off, Alessandro said. All of it. You don't owe anyone an explanation. Emma did. She powered down the phone and set it in the cup holder. What happens now? She asked. Now? Now we wait. The Morrisons will implode slowly. Ryan will try to salvage what he can. Your sister will make a choice about whether she's willing to tie herself to a sinking ship. And your mother will probably try every manipulation tactic she knows to get you to fix things. And us? Alessandro glanced at her, his expression softening. Us? We do whatever you want. We can hide away at the loft. We can go somewhere public and make a statement. We can leave the city entirely. It's your choice, Emma. It's always been your choice. Emma thought about that. Thought about the week she'd agreed to. Thought about Alessandro's confession of love. Thought about the way he looked at her like she was extraordinary instead of ordinary. I want to go back to the gym, she said suddenly. Alessandro raised an eyebrow. The gym? Sophia said anger means I know I deserved better. I want to keep feeling that. I want to keep getting stronger. Emma turned to face him. I don't want to hide. I don't want to be the victim in this story. I want to be the woman who chose herself and didn't apologize for it. Alessandro's smile was slow, approving. Then that's exactly what you'll be. They spent the afternoon at the gym. Sophia was waiting when they arrived, her expression knowing. I saw the news, she said to Emma. Victor Morrison's arrest, your face all over social media with our boss. How are you holding up? I'm angry, Emma said honestly, and I want to hit something. Sophia grinned. That's my girl. Let's go. For the next 2 hours, Emma trained. Sophia pushed her harder than before, teaching her combinations, footwork, defense. Emma's muscles screamed, sweat poured down her face, but she didn't stop. She thought about every time her mother had dismissed her feelings, punched, thought about Lila's betrayal, punched harder, thought about Ryan's face when she'd caught him, punched until her arms shook. "Beautiful," Sophia called. "You're a natural." Alessandro watched from the side of the mat, his eyes tracking Emma's every movement. When she finally stopped, gasping for breath, he was there with water and a towel. "You're magnificent when you're angry," he said quietly. Emma wiped her face, her chest heaving. "I feel alive." "You are alive. More alive than you've ever been." Alessandro brushed a strand of damp hair from her forehead. "This is who you are, Emma. Not the quiet girl who swallowed her pain. This warrior who fights back." Emma looked down at her wrapped hands. They were red, sore, probably bruised underneath, but they felt strong. She felt strong. "I'm not going back," she said, "to who I was before. I can't." "Good. Because I wouldn't let you even if you tried." They left the gym as the sun was setting. Alessandro drove them back to the loft, but when they arrived, he didn't get out of the car immediately. "I want to show you something," he said. "What?" "My place, where I live, where I work, the parts of my world you haven't seen yet." Alessandro's eyes were serious. "But only if you want to. Only if you're ready." Emma's heart raced. This felt significant, like crossing a threshold she couldn't uncross. "Okay," she said. "Show me." Alessandro's penthouse was nothing like Emma had imagined. It wasn't cold or sterile. It was warm, lived in, filled with books and art, and comfortable furniture that looked actually used. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the entire city. The view was breathtaking. "This is beautiful," Emma breathed. "It's home." Alessandro moved to the windows, staring out at the lights below. "I bought this place 10 years ago, right after I took control of the family business. I wanted somewhere high enough that I could see everything coming." Emma joined him at the window. "Were you scared when you took over?" "Terrified. I was 25. Half the men I commanded were twice my age. They didn't trust me. They thought I was too young, too emotional, too likely to get them killed." Alessandro's reflection smiled darkly in the glass. "So I made sure they feared me more than they doubted me." "How?" "By being ruthless, by making examples, by proving I was willing to do whatever it took to survive." He turned to face her. "I'm not proud of everything I've done, Emma, but I'm not ashamed either. I did what I had to do. And now? Now I'm trying to do what I want to do, which is protect you, build something with you. See if a man built on violence can create something gentle." Emma's breath caught. "You think we're gentle?" "I think we could be. With each other. Away from everyone else." Alessandro moved closer, his hand coming up to cup her face. "I've never wanted gentle before. Never wanted soft. But with you, I want everything I told myself I didn't deserve." "Alessandro, I love you," he said again. "I know I keep saying it. I know it's too soon, but I need you to understand something. When I look at you, I see the rest of my life. And for the first time, that doesn't terrify me. It makes me want to be better." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I'm not ready to say it back." "I know, and that's okay. Take your time. I'll still be here." "Promise?" "I promise. I'll catch you every single time you fall, even if you spend years falling." Alessandro's thumb brushed away a tear that had escaped. "You're safe with me, Emma. In every way that matters." Emma looked up at him, at this dangerous, powerful man who'd destroyed her enemies and held her when she cried, who'd given her permission to be angry and space to be scared, who loved her. And in that moment, standing in his penthouse with the city spread out below them, Emma made a choice. She reached up and kissed him. Alessandro froze for half a heartbeat. Then his hands came up to frame her face, and he kissed her back with an intensity that stole her breath. It wasn't gentle. It was fierce, consuming, like he was claiming something he'd been denied his entire life. Emma melted into it, into him, letting herself feel everything she'd been holding back. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Alessandro pressed his forehead against hers. "Emma," he whispered, his voice rough. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure about this. About you. About choosing myself for once." She pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. "I don't know what tomorrow looks like, but tonight, I want to be here. With you." Alessandro's expression shifted into something tender and fierce all at once. "Then stay. Stay tonight. Stay as long as you want. The week isn't over yet." "I don't care about the week anymore. I care about you." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, the corner of her mouth. "Stay because you want to, not because we made a deal." Emma's heart was pounding. "Okay, I'll stay." They moved to the couch, Alessandro pulling her close against his side. They stayed like that for a long time, watching the city lights flicker below, not needing to fill the silence with words. Emma felt safe in a way she'd never experienced before. Protected. Seen. Chosen. Her phone, still powered off in her jacket pocket, felt like a weight she no longer wanted to carry. Eventually, she pulled it out and handed it to Alessandro. "Get rid of it," she said. "I don't want it anymore." Alessandro took the phone, studying her face. "Your mother and sister will keep trying to reach you." "I know, let them." Emma's voice was steady. "I'm done making myself available to people who only want me when it's convenient for them." "You're sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." Alessandro set the phone on the coffee table. "We'll get you a new number tomorrow, one they don't have, one that's just for the people who actually deserve access to you." Emma nodded, feeling lighter already. "What happens now, with the Morrisons?" "Victor will probably make bail in a few days. His lawyers are good, but the damage is done. His reputation is destroyed. His business partners are distancing themselves. Within a month, he'll be facing trial. And he'll lose." "And Ryan?" Alessandro's jaw tightened. "Ryan will try to salvage what he can. He'll probably claim he was manipulated by his father. Play the victim. Some people will believe him. But the ones who matter won't. He's finished in this city." "Lila will leave him," Emma said with certainty. "How do you know?" "Because I know my sister. She doesn't do struggle. She doesn't do scandal. She wants the fairy tale, the perfect life. Ryan can't give her that anymore." Emma leaned her head against Alessandro's shoulder. "She'll break off the engagement within the week. Probably claim she had no idea what Ryan was involved in. Make herself the victim too. And your mother will help her spin the narrative." "Of course, that's what they do. Rewrite history so they're always the wounded ones." Emma closed her eyes. "I used to think that was normal, that family meant protecting each other's images instead of each other's hearts." "That's not family. That's performance." Alessandro's hand traced slow circles on her shoulder. "Real family protects you even when it's inconvenient, even when it costs them something. Like Gabriella and Marco and Sofia. Exactly like them. They're not perfect, but they're loyal, and they'll stand with you no matter what comes next." Emma thought about that. About the dinner at Alessandro's house, the way his people had welcomed her without question. The way Sofia had taught her to punch, Gabriella had called her child, Marco had promised protection. They barely knew her, but they'd claimed her anyway. "I've never had that before," she whispered. "You have it now, for as long as you want it." They talked late into the night. Alessandro told her about his childhood, about losing his father, about building his empire from nothing. Emma told him about growing up invisible, about Ryan's betrayal, about the wedding invitation that had broken something open inside her. And somewhere around midnight, as Alessandro held her close and the city slept below them, Emma realized something. She was falling in love with him. Not because he'd destroyed her enemies or given her safety or made her feel powerful, but because he'd given her the space to be angry, to be messy, to be fully herself without apologizing for it. She didn't say it, not yet, but she felt it settling into her bones like a truth she'd been waiting her whole life to discover. Eventually, they moved to Alessandro's bedroom. He gave her space, offered her privacy, made it clear she could take the guest room if she wanted. But Emma didn't want distance. She wanted to fall asleep next to someone who saw her. They lay facing each other in the dark, Alessandro's hand resting on her waist. "Thank you," Emma whispered. "For what?" for catching me, for seeing me, for making me feel like I matter. Alessandro's thumb brushed against her hip. You've always mattered, Emma. The whole world was just too blind to see it. She fell asleep like that, safe and seen and choosing herself for the first time in her life. The next morning, Emma woke to sunlight and the smell of coffee. She found Alessandro in the kitchen, already dressed, working on his laptop. When he saw her, his expression softened. "Morning," he said. "There's coffee. And breakfast, if you're hungry." Emma poured herself a cup, savoring the warmth. "What are you working on?" "Damage control. Victor Morrison's lawyers are already trying to spin a narrative. I'm making sure the truth stays front and center." Alessandro closed the laptop. "But that can wait. How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in months." "Good." He stood, moving toward her. "I need to tell you something, and I need you to stay calm." Emma's stomach dropped. "What happened?" "Ryan Morrison tried to contact you last night, multiple times. When he couldn't reach you, he posted on social media. He's claiming you're being manipulated, that I'm using you to hurt him." Emma set down her coffee cup carefully. "Let me see." Alessandro handed her his phone. Emma read Ryan's post, her hands surprisingly steady. "I know Emma Caldwell is going through something difficult right now. I want her to know that I still care about her despite our past. If someone is using her to hurt my family, I hope she finds the strength to walk away before she gets hurt. Emma, if you're reading this, please reach out. You're not alone." Emma stared at the words, felt the familiar pull of guilt, of responsibility, of being needed. Then she handed the phone back to Alessandro and laughed. "What's funny?" Alessandro asked, his expression cautious. "He thinks I'm being manipulated. He thinks I'm some helpless victim who needs saving." Emma shook her head. "He never did understand me. He never saw me clearly enough to know that I'm capable of making my own choices." "So you're not upset?" "I'm furious. But not at you. At him, for thinking so little of me that he can't imagine I'd choose this. Choose you. Choose myself." Emma met Alessandro's eyes. "I want to respond, publicly." Alessandro's eyebrows rose. "Are you sure?" "Completely. I'm done being quiet. I'm done letting other people control the narrative about my life." Emma's voice was firm. "Ryan wants to position himself as the concerned ex-boyfriend? Fine. Let him. But I'm going to make it very clear that I'm exactly where I want to be." Alessandro studied her for a long moment. Then he smiled. "What do you want to say?" Emma thought about it. About 4 months of silence. About swallowing her pain, about being invisible while everyone else told her story for her. "Give me your phone," she said. Alessandro did. Emma opened Ryan's post, clicked on the comment section, and typed, "Ryan, I appreciate your concern, but it's misplaced. I'm not being manipulated. I'm not a victim. I'm making my own choices for the first time in my life, and those choices don't include you or your family. I hope you find the strength to take responsibility for your own actions instead of worrying about mine. I'm exactly where I want to be. Emma." She showed it to Alessandro before posting. "Too harsh?" "It's perfect. But Emma, once you post this, there's no taking it back. People will judge you. They'll call you vindictive. They'll say terrible things. Let them. I'd rather be judged for choosing myself than praised for making myself small." Emma hit post. The response was immediate. Within minutes, the comment had hundreds of likes. Replies poured in. Some supportive, some cruel, all of them loud. Emma didn't read them. She handed the phone back to Alessandro and felt a weight lift from her shoulders. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Free." Alessandro pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. "You're incredible. I'm learning to be." Over the next few days, the fallout intensified. Ryan's post went viral. Emma's response sparked debates online. Some people called her brave. Others called her cold. News outlets picked up the story, framing it as a bitter ex-girlfriend siding with her former boyfriend's enemy. Emma didn't care. She spent her days training with Sophia, her evenings with Alessandro and his family, her nights feeling safe for the first time in her life. She got a new phone number, gave it only to people who'd earned it, and ignored the rest of the world's noise. On the 5th day after Victor Morrison's arrest, Lila's wedding announcement was quietly deleted from social media. No explanation, no statement, just gone. Emma saw it while scrolling through her new phone. She showed Alessandro. She ended it, Emma said. Are you surprised? No, just sad. Not for her. For what we used to be, before she chose a man over her sister. Emma set the phone down. I think I need closure. Real closure. Not for her. For me. What kind of closure? Emma thought about it. About everything she'd never said. Everything she'd swallowed because it was easier than confronting the people who hurt her. I want to write her a letter. Not to send. Just to say everything I never got to say. To put it somewhere and leave it behind. Alessandro nodded. Then do it. Whatever you need. That night, Emma sat at Alessandro's desk and wrote. She wrote about the betrayal. About feeling invisible. About watching Lila take everything that mattered without a second thought. About their mother choosing sides. About the wedding invitation that had shattered her. She wrote about anger and hurt and the years of making herself small. And then she wrote about choosing herself. About Alessandro. About learning to fight back. About becoming someone who demanded to be seen. When she was done, she folded the letter carefully. Alessandro found her standing at the windows, the letter in her hand. Are you going to send it? He asked. No, I'm going to burn it. Alessandro smiled. I know just the place. They drove to his estate, the same house where Emma had met his family. In the backyard, Alessandro built a fire in a stone pit. Emma stood beside him, the letter clutched in her hand. Any regrets? Alessandro asked. None. Emma dropped the letter into the flames. They watched it burn together, watched the paper curl and blacken and turn to ash, watched years of pain transform into smoke and drift away into the night sky. It's done, Emma whispered. Alessandro wrapped his arm around her waist. You're free. And Emma realized it was true. She wasn't the invisible girl anymore. She wasn't the responsible daughter or the betrayed girlfriend or the quiet sister. She was Emma, just Emma, powerful and seen and choosing herself every single day. The following week, federal prosecutors announced they had enough evidence to move forward with Victor Morrison's trial. The news coverage was brutal. More details emerged about the extent of his crimes. Business partners testified against him. Assets were seized. Ryan tried to distance himself, claiming ignorance. But the damage was done. His reputation was destroyed. Job offers were rescinded. Friends stopped returning calls. Emma heard it all secondhand through Marco, who kept tabs on the Morrison family's collapse. She felt no satisfaction in Ryan's suffering, just indifference. He'd become irrelevant to her story. 3 weeks after the arrest, Emma's mother made one final attempt to reach her. She showed up at the loft building, somehow bypassing security, banging on Emma's door. Emma opened it, looked at her mother's face, saw the anger, the desperation, the blame. You did this, her mother hissed. You destroyed Lila's life. She had to cancel her wedding. Do you know how humiliating that was? How much money we lost? Emma felt Alessandro come up behind her, a silent presence of support. I didn't destroy anything, Emma said calmly. I just stopped setting myself on fire to keep you warm. Don't be dramatic. You're being selfish. You always were the selfish one. You're right. I am being selfish. For the first time in my life, I'm choosing what I want over what you need. And I'm not going to apologize for it. Her mother's face twisted. That man is using you. He's a criminal. You're going to regret this. Maybe. But they'll be my regrets, not yours, not Lila's, mine. Emma stepped back. Goodbye, Mom. Don't come here again. She closed the door, locked it, and felt nothing but relief. Alessandro pulled her close and Emma let herself be held. Let herself grieve the mother she'd wanted but never had. Let herself mourn the family that had never really seen her. And then she let it go. That night, Alessandro took her back to the Sterling Room, the same restaurant where Lila's wedding should have happened, the same place where Alessandro had first offered Emma a choice. They sat at the same private table, ordered the same wine. But everything was different. Emma wasn't scared anymore, wasn't small, wasn't invisible. I have something for you, Alessandro said. He pulled out a small box. Emma's heart stopped. Alessandro, it's not what you think. Not yet. He opened the box. Inside was a key. I want you to move in with me. Not because of a deal or a timeline, because I love you and I want you there when I wake up. I want you there when I come home. I want you there always." Emma stared at the key. "That's a big step." "I know. And if you're not ready, I'll wait. I'll wait as long as you need." Alessandro took her hand. "But I need you to know something. You changed my life, Emma. You made me want to be better. Made me want to build something soft and gentle and real. And I don't want to waste another day pretending I can do that without you." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I love you." Alessandro went very still. "What?" "I love you. I think I've loved you since you caught me on that street corner and looked at me like I mattered. I was just too scared to admit it." Emma squeezed his hand. "You saw me when I was invisible. You gave me permission to be angry. You made me feel powerful and safe and chosen. How could I not love you?" Alessandro's expression cracked into something raw and vulnerable. "Say it again." "I love you, Alessandro Moretti, and yes, I'll move in with you." He stood, pulled her up, and kissed her like she was air and he'd been drowning. The restaurant disappeared. The world disappeared. There was only this, only them, only the truth they'd both been too afraid to say. When they finally broke apart, Alessandro was smiling, really smiling. Not the cold, controlled expression he showed the world, but something genuine and bright and unguarded. "Marry me," he said. Emma laughed, breathless. "We've known each other 3 weeks. I don't care. Marry me, not today, not tomorrow, but someday. When you're ready. Let me spend the rest of my life proving you were right to choose yourself, right to choose me." Emma looked at him, at this dangerous, powerful man who destroyed her enemies and built her a sanctuary, who'd taught her to fight and given her family and loved her when she felt unlovable. "Someday," she agreed. "When I'm ready." "Yes." Alessandro kissed her again, and in that moment, in the restaurant where Lila's fairy tale should have happened, Emma claimed her own. 2 months later, Emma stood in Alessandro's penthouse wearing a simple white dress. Gabriella fussed with her hair while Sophia adjusted the flowers. Outside, the city stretched endlessly, alive with possibility. "You ready, child?" Gabriella asked. Emma looked at herself in the mirror. She barely recognized the woman staring back. This Emma was strong, confident, unafraid, visible. "I'm ready." The ceremony was small. Just Alessandro's family gathered in the penthouse living room. No crowds, no spectacle. No performance for people who didn't matter. Just the people who'd seen her, protected her, chosen her. Marco stood as witness. Sophia held the rings. Gabriella cried happy tears. And Alessandro looked at Emma like she was the only person in the world who mattered. When it was time for vows, Alessandro took her hands. "Emma, I was built from violence and fear. I learned to survive by making people afraid of me. But you looked at me and saw past all of that. You saw the parts of me I thought I'd buried, the parts that wanted something gentle, something real. You made me want to be better, and I promised to spend the rest of my life being the man you deserve, the man who catches you every time you fall, the man who sees you. Always." Emma's voice shook as she spoke. "Alessandro, you found me when I was invisible, when I'd convinced myself that being quiet and small and convenient was the same as being loved. You taught me to fight back, to demand better, to choose myself. You gave me a family. You gave me strength. You gave me permission to be angry and messy and fully myself, and I promised to spend the rest of my life being the woman who stands beside you, not in your shadow, not behind you, beside you, as your equal, your partner, your home." They exchanged rings, simple bands that felt heavy with promise. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the officiant said. Alessandro pulled Emma close and kissed her. His family cheered. Gabriella sobbed. Marco smiled, and Emma felt something she'd never felt before. Complete. Later that evening, after the small celebration had ended and the guests had gone home, Emma and Alessandro stood at the windows overlooking the city. She wore his ring, he wore hers. They were married. "Do you have any regrets?" Alessandro asked quietly. Emma thought about the wedding invitation that had started everything, about Lila and Ryan and her mother, about the life she'd walked away from. "Not a single one," she said. "Do you?" Only that I didn't find you sooner. Emma leaned into him. We found each other at exactly the right time, when we were both ready to choose something real. Alessandro kissed the top of her head. What do you want to do now? We could go anywhere. Do anything. The world is yours, Emma. Emma smiled. I want to start a foundation. Alessandro pulled back slightly. A foundation? For women leaving abusive situations. Women who need help becoming visible. Who need resources and safety and people who'll catch them when they fall. Emma's voice was steady, certain. I want to use everything I learned, everything you taught me. I want to help other women choose themselves. Alessandro's expression shifted into something fierce and proud. That's perfect. We'll fund it. Build it together. Make it everything you envision. You do that? Emma, I'd do anything for you. You know that by now. She did know. After everything, after the weeks of chaos and revelation and transformation, Emma knew exactly who Alessandro was. He was dangerous and powerful and capable of terrible things, but with her, he was gentle, protective, real. I love you, she said. I love you more, Alessandro replied. They stood like that for a long time, watching the city lights flicker and glow. Somewhere out there, Lila was probably rebuilding her life. Ryan was facing the consequences of his choices. Her mother was likely telling anyone who'd listen about her ungrateful daughter. Emma didn't care. She'd spent 27 years being invisible, being quiet, being the daughter and sister and girlfriend who made herself small so others could feel big. But she wasn't that person anymore. She was Emma Moretti, wife of Alessandro, fighter, survivor, woman who demanded to be seen. And she was standing in a penthouse wearing a wedding ring, married to a man who'd destroy empires for her, planning to build something that would help other women find their own strength. She wasn't orbiting someone else's spotlight anymore. She was standing in her own light, and she'd chosen every single step that brought her here. 3 months later, the Emma Caldwell Foundation for Women's Empowerment opened its doors. Emma cut the ribbon, wearing a sharp suit and her wedding ring, Alessandro standing proudly beside her. The building was beautiful, secure, filled with resources and support, and people trained to help women transition from survival to thriving. Gabriella served on the board. Sophia ran self-defense classes. Marco handled security. Alessandro's entire family rallied behind it. And women came. Women escaping abuse. Women leaving toxic families. Women who'd spent their whole lives being invisible. Emma met with each of them personally, shared her story, showed them that choosing yourself wasn't selfish, it was survival. One afternoon, 6 months after her wedding, Emma sat in her office reviewing applications when her assistant knocked. There's someone here to see you, she said carefully. She says she's your sister. Emma's hand stilled on the papers. Send her in. Lila walked through the door looking smaller than Emma remembered, thinner. Her perfect hair was pulled back simply. She wore jeans and a sweater instead of designer clothes. She looked human instead of polished. Emma, Lila said quietly, thank you for seeing me. Emma gestured to the chair across from her desk. Why are you here? Lila sat, her hands twisting in her lap. I wanted to apologize. For everything. For Ryan. For the wedding invitation. For not being the sister you deserved. Emma studied her. Looked for manipulation, for ulterior motives. Saw only genuine regret. What happened? Emma asked. With Ryan? I left him, obviously. When his father was arrested, when the scandal broke, I realized I never loved him. I loved what he represented. Security, status, being chosen. Lila's voice cracked. And I destroyed my relationship with you for something that was never real. Yes, you did. I know. And I know apologizing doesn't fix it, doesn't undo the damage. But I needed you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. And I'm sorry. Emma leaned back in her chair. What do you want from me, Lila? Nothing. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect us to be sisters again. I just needed you to know that you were right about everything. And I was wrong. For a long moment, Emma said nothing. She thought about the girl who'd opened a wedding invitation and felt her world shatter. Thought about the woman who'd burned a letter and let go of that pain. I forgive you, Emma said finally. Lila's head snapped up. What? I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, not because it fixes anything, but because holding on to anger at you was hurting me more than it was hurting you, so I'm letting it go. Tears streamed down Lila's face. Thank you. But forgiving you doesn't mean I want you in my life, Emma continued gently. You made your choices. I made mine. We're on different paths now. Lila nodded, wiping her eyes. I understand. I hope you find what you're looking for, Emma said. I hope you learn to be happy without needing someone else to make you feel valuable. I hope you choose yourself someday. I'm trying. That's why I came here, to your foundation. I want to volunteer, to help, if you'll let me. Emma considered it, saw the genuine desire in Lila's eyes, the real regret. Talk to Gabriella. She runs our volunteer program. If she approves you, then we'll see. Thank you, Emma. Really, thank you. Lila stood to leave. At the door, she paused. You look happy. Really happy. I'm glad. You deserve it. After she left, Emma sat in her office feeling lighter. She'd forgiven Lila. Not for Lila's sake, but for her own. Because carrying that anger had taken up space she wanted back. That evening, she told Alessandro about it over dinner. How do you feel? He asked. Peaceful. I think it was the right choice. For you or for her? For me. Always for me. Emma smiled. I'm choosing myself, remember? That's what you taught me. Alessandro raised his glass. To choosing yourself, and to the woman who does it better than anyone I've ever known. They touched glasses, drank, and Emma felt the last piece of her old life settle into place and transform into something new. A year after their wedding, Emma stood in front of a room full of women at the Foundation's anniversary gala. Alessandro sat in the front row, watching her with unconcealed pride. Gabriella, Sofia, Marco, and the rest of their family filled the seats behind him. Emma looked out at the crowd and began to speak. A year ago, I was invisible. I'd spent my entire life making myself small so other people could feel big. I let people take from me because I thought that's what love looked like. I accepted betrayal because demanding better felt too hard. I was the quiet daughter, the responsible sister, the convenient girlfriend. I was everything except myself. She paused, meeting Alessandro's eyes. And then someone saw me, really saw me. Not the version I performed for other people, the real me, the angry me, the messy me, the me who deserved better. And he didn't just see me. He gave me permission to see myself. Emma's voice grew stronger. This foundation exists because I know what it's like to be invisible. I know what it's like to believe you don't deserve better. I know what it's like to choose everyone else over yourself until there's nothing left. But I also know what it's like to choose yourself, to demand better, to fight back, to become visible. She looked around the room at the faces watching her, women who'd found their way to the foundation, women who were learning to choose themselves. You deserve to be seen. You deserve to demand better. You deserve to choose yourself every single day, and we're here to help you do that. Not because you're broken, but because you're powerful, and the world needs to see what you become when you stop apologizing for existing. The room erupted in applause. Women stood, tears streaming down their faces. Alessandro's family cheered, and Emma stood in that spotlight she'd chosen, feeling more herself than she'd ever felt in her life. After the gala, Alessandro drove them back to the penthouse. They stood at their usual spot by the windows, the city spread out below them. You were magnificent tonight, Alessandro said. I felt magnificent. Is that arrogant? No, it's honest. He turned her to face him. Emma, you've built something incredible. You've helped hundreds of women find their strength. You've created a legacy. We've created it. Together. Together, Alessandro agreed. He pulled her close. I love you. More every single day. I love you too. More than I thought I was capable of. They stood like that, holding each other, looking out at the city where Emma had once felt invisible, where she'd once believed she didn't matter. She mattered now. She mattered to Alessandro, to Gabriella, to Sofia and Marco, and everyone in their chosen family. But most importantly, she mattered to herself. Emma Caldwell had spent 27 years being invisible, had accepted a wedding invitation to watch her sister marry her ex-boyfriend, had believed she deserved crumbs because that's all anyone offered her. But Emma Moretti knew better. She knew she deserved everything, deserved love that saw her completely, deserved a partner who caught her every time she fell, deserved a family who protected her without question, deserved to build something meaningful and powerful and real. She'd transformed from invisible to incandescent, from victim to victor, from the woman who accepted betrayal to the woman who demanded better. And she'd done it by making one simple choice. She'd chosen herself, and she'd never stop choosing herself every single day for the rest of her life. Alessandro kissed her as the city lights glittered below. Emma kissed him back, this dangerous man who'd become her sanctuary, her partner, her home. And somewhere in the night, the woman who'd once been invisible finally understood what it meant to truly be seen, not by the world, by the person who mattered most, herself.